We are in Champions League, man.
That was my next
Dilly din, dilly dong, come on.
Encara Messi, 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 gol, 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 gol.
Into Sheringham, and Solskjaer has won it!
I will love it if we beat them. Love it.
This is the Modern Soccer Coach Podcast with Gary Curneen.
Hello and welcome to the Modern Soccer Coach Podcast. My name is Gary Curneen. First off, I want to say a big thank you to all the coaches who reached out on social media of every different platform over the past week. We had a new arrival in the family, Danny Curneen, so all is well. Really exciting stuff, and I appreciate everyone who sent a message by Twitter, Facebook, text, whatever it was. Really appreciated. So also a big thank you goes out to all the coaches who were anxiously awaiting the individual development webinar series that I had scheduled for that day with Oliver Cage. We have rescheduled the date for Friday, October 5th. So that's coming up. Ollie is sharing a lot of his work with Houston Dash, who recently won the MLS Open Cup last week. And then I'll be looking at the individual development side with the recent season, a couple of case studies from the Chicago Red Stars as well. So really excited about it. There's still time to register if you want to sign up. There's 3 webinars in total. There's going to be a lot of content related to every level, and then there's also going to be a lot of interaction with coaches as well. So if you want to sign up, if you're interested, you can go to the MSC Education Twitter page, and there's a link directly there as well. So the guest for today's podcast is goalkeeping legend Shaka Hislop. I'm sure everyone knows who he is. He's played in the Premier League with Newcastle, West Ham, Portsmouth. He played in the World Cup with Trinidad and Tobago. He now works as a commentator with ESPN. Really interested to speak to him about a few things. He played in an era where it was really entertaining and free-flowing football. I wanted to get his thoughts on comparing the coaching between that era and the coaching in today's era of tactical geniuses. I also wanted to get his thoughts on goalkeeper coaching. Again, different era. He grew up in an era without the technology, without the analysis. How did he get feedback? How did he work through games with his goalkeeper coach? What role did they have? And then I wanted to get his thoughts on the US game. He's so heavily involved over here. I wanted to get his thoughts on coach development. I wanted to get his thoughts on player development and Shaka's different classes. This is a short one, but it's a really good one. Shaka was first class with his time and his insight, and I think you'll enjoy it. So as always, please let me know what you think, what you agreed with, what you enjoyed, what you didn't agree with. On Twitter at Gary Curneen, on Instagram at Gary Curneen. Give it a little 5-star like on the iTunes page. As always, really appreciate you spreading the word of the podcast and appreciate you listening. Here's Shaka. Enjoy. Shaka, thanks so much for joining me this morning on the Modern Soccer Coach Podcast. Excited to have you on.
Thank you very much for having me. Good to be here.
First question for you. You played under 2 of the greatest man managers in English football, Harry Redknapp and Kevin Keegan. Do you think that in today's era of these super tactics that we overlook the importance of personality in coaches?
Yeah, I think we do. I think in my opinion, the greatest coach, certainly at the highest level, is to get the best out of those players, which is something that Harry Redknapp did throughout his career, and Kevin Keegan also had a lot of success with. I also accept that the game has moved on from where it was when I played under both of those managers. Managers have become more coaches now, and that philosophy that they bring to the training ground shows on match day. At the same time, despite seemingly endless budgets, I still think one of the primary responsibilities for any football manager or any football coach is to get the best out of those players. The solution isn't always to go out and buy somebody else.
Did playing for those managers as a goalkeeper help you with less pressure? And again, this is just I'm going by perceptions only. It sounds like a pretty relaxed dressing room, plenty of laughs, not bombarded with information. Was it easier personally for you?
But for me, it was different. Certainly in styles under Kevin Keegan, who was very attack minded. There was a lot asked of goalkeepers or defenders. Clean sheets weren't, the highest of priorities. But at the same time, with Harry Redknapp, I think there's a little bit more balance to it there. But at the same time, certainly as a player, I related closest with the goalkeeper coach. I always felt that he kind of understood the pressures that goalkeepers were under, and they were a good bridge between me as a player, as a goalkeeper, and the coaching staff. So as much as those voices between Kevin Keegan and Harry Redknapp resonated loudest in the dressing room on a match day, during the week, it would always be the goalkeeper coach, Terry Geno at Newcastle United, or John Burridge at Newcastle United, and Les Sealy at West Ham under Harry. Those are the people that I kind of went to and lent on from during the week, as I say.
Yeah, it was great for us as fans of that 90s era of attacking football, but I never thought of it from a goalkeeping point of view. Were you ever like, God, I wish we'd just sit and take a draw here today?
Well, I'll be honest with you, Gary. That wasn't in my own DNA and the way I was brought up to play the game, and I prefer to play in attacking teams, and it meant conceding far too many and not as many clean sheets, and your record or your CV didn't read as nicely as maybe you would like, but at the same time, I think there's value even as a goalkeeper, as a goalkeeper conceding in playing with teams where everybody's enjoying it. The fans are enjoying it. The players are enjoying going out there week in, week out. Yes, it makes my job a little bit harder, but the environment is so much better. And not just in match days, the environment all week. And that's the football I enjoyed watching as a fan, and as a player, is the football I enjoyed being a part of.
Yeah, you mentioned those goalkeepers, Les Sealy and John Burridge, especially, were massive personalities, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What difference and what specific areas did they help you the most?
Well, Budgie was mad as a hatter straight away, and the one thing you take from that is nothing affected Budgie. It really did not matter. It was all water off a duck's back, and it's an incredible attitude to have in life and in sport, and in particular as a goalkeeper, because you're judged on your feelings as a goalkeeper. So to have that attitude where it doesn't matter and nothing ever seems to bother you, it's an asset like no other. Les was more complete in his thinking. At the same time, huge character, would let his feelings be known, whether you were playing in front of him in on a starting 11, or you were being coached by him. His presence was always there. And one thing I always appreciated with Les in particular is he would always have your back, even when if the coaches were complaining about one thing or another. Maybe Shaka should have come for that cross or something of the sort. Les would defend me. He would then come to me on the training ground on Monday or Tuesday or whatever it was, and we'd go over it and look at the video or whatever it may be, and try to make an analysis then. But he would always support. He'd always side with the goalkeeper, and I always thoroughly appreciated that.
You mentioned there about the video. What was the role? There's so much now on analysis and data. What was the role after games? Did you guys look at the video? Did you go through it all again, or was it all done on the training ground?
It was done on well, at times we'd have short video sessions. You also have to keep in mind, guys, the technology was a whole lot different back then. So we weren't able to isolate incidents. It would all be on a VCR videotape, so it wasn't as seamless as it is now, and as a result made for quite quite a tedious process at times, trying to isolate one incident or the next. Even things like the pro zone or whatever it may be. It's come a long way in the last 20 years. So even that, it's it has far more impact, and it's easier to use now. So don't get me wrong. I'm not just we didn't just brush aside video analysis. It just became trying to. There's only so much you could do in the same amount of time. So we kind of we kind of go over some of the errors, but we always finish up, and this is every team I was in, always finish up with some of the positive things that we did and the way forward. But those all played a part. But again, you're trying to do the entire team for this, in this one session or whatever it may be. And then it was left kind of to the goalkeeper coach and the goalkeeper to go over specific incidents, which a lot of time, weren't caught on video for whatever reason. Again, keep in mind the technology back at the time was a whole lot different and generally just follow the ball.
Yeah, it's interesting when you look at that era, again, an era that I grew up loving. There's so much advances in the science and the psychology and the video analysis.
Mm-hmm.
Do you look back on any of that and think that would have helped me when I was younger? Or are you kind of glad that it didn't get in the way?
Well, I accept it for what it is. In all honesty, the truth is, you start looking back on times and time I played and making comparisons to now. But then you could also go the other way and look at maybe David Seaman when he was a young and up and coming goalkeeper, and what he had to deal with, or those tools that he had to do without. So you kind of accept that. So it was when I played. I enjoyed every moment of it, and you don't look back on it with any kind of regret. Even little incidents like that, like I wish I had this, or I wish I could analyze that. It's you take it for what it is, and so I don't kind of go over things in my mind, and not in that manner.
What about the role of the goalkeeper coach during games, half times? How much communication did you kind of dictate that you needed, or how much of it was, well, this is what I'm going to tell you, and how was that balance, Scott?
But I would have liked a lot more, in all honesty. But then you come in at halftime and dressing room or after, and it was the manager's voice that you would hear. It was it was his dressing room, and he would talk for as long as he wanted, and he would get the message across to whoever he wanted, whether it was me as a goalkeeper or anybody else. And it was only when he was finished talking, if you had some time, to go and have a quick chat with the goalkeeper coach before the whistle went for the second half or whatever it was. You tried to make the most of that, but again, that varied. You're coming at halftime 2-0 down, the manager is going to be talking well into the referee blowing the whistle to start the second half. You come in 2-0 up, it's going to be a far more laid back, and you have a lot more time to kind of stroll around, have a couple of chats, sit with the goalkeeper coach, whatever it may be. So that varied from game to game, and from and all depended on what the circumstance was.
So many coaches today, Shaka, struggle with leadership and communication in their teams, and that's usually exposed on the defensive side of the ball. What do you think coaches can do a little bit more to bring out vocal and personality wise out of their goalkeepers, or do you think we're reading too much into the value of it as coaches?
No, I think goalkeepers and their voices need to be heard, and need to be encouraged. I think the tendency, certainly when you think of young goalkeepers, is for young players in general. The assumption is you're going to hear the coach's voice from the sideline, but more, the way to bring out those player voices on the field is to have less of the coach's voice on the sideline. But at the same time, coaches need to coach, to encourage players young players to make decisions, to be leaders, to change things as they see it's happening on the field. And it's only when young players have that confidence, in recognizing those incidents and recognizing when things need to change, and a confidence to send that message, and through the rest of the team during the game. You hear those voices come louder and louder. As a goalkeeper myself, I felt it wasn't really me or my job to kind of recognize those patterns in terms of general play. I saw my role as the eyes and the backs of the defenders' heads. If there was a striker making a run around the back of the defender and he was aware, I wanted him just to make sure. I also felt that there is value in my talking, um, almost not necessarily to get over a particular message, but just to reassure the defenders that I am here. This is where I am. I think I think defenders just on the field and kind of focus on the game, hearing that voice and knowing, kind of using that voice to judge exactly where they are on the park, exactly how far out of the box or how far away from the goal they are, exactly which side of the goal the goalkeeper is standing on in case they have to make a back pass. Those things they kind of pick up on just by me seeing anything. Well done. Just keep an eye on the guy sneaking around. So something that may not have any real weight or any real value at the time, but it lets them know exactly where they are and what they need to do or what they may need to do at a time where things get a little bit hectic. If all of a sudden a ball breaks and a striker's running, clear through, and that's not the time for them to kind of figure out, oh, this is where I am on the park, this is which side of the goal Shaka is on, or whatever it may be. Those things, those blanks you can fill in well ahead of time in case things do get hectic and you aren't able to kind of make those assessments on the fly.
I remember meeting you about 2004, 2005 down with a coach. No, I was about 6 or 7 down in Florida. You were doing a coaching badge.
All right, yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Why did you opt life in front of the big screen instead of the touchline?
Well, I mean, I started doing my coaching badges while I was still playing. So I started doing my UEFA B license, did my goalkeeper badges, then came over to the US, did those. And I'll be honest, Gary, the opportunity at ESPN just kind of fell in my lap. I just retired from FC Dallas and got a call asking if I'd come up and do a couple of shows. I didn't have anything else to do. I'd retired just before the end of the MLS season because of injury. Didn't have much else to do, so I thought, okay, no problem there. I'll go do that. And make a long story short, eventually, they called me back and said they wanted to offer me a full time opportunity with ESPN, and the rest, as I say, is history. So it's not. It wasn't a decision that necessarily made consciously in that I wanted to be on TV, and it just happened, and I took that chance.
Brilliant. If you were a goalkeeper coach right now working for Mr. Klopp, how would you manage? We're talking about the mistake that Alison Becker made a couple of weeks ago. How would you manage that?
Well, you've got to encourage every goalkeeper to be who they are. I think it's dangerous to start asking keepers, regardless of whether they're playing for Liverpool or the Premier League or playing for a local, under 12 team, to be something that they're not. I couldn't be David Seaman or Peter Schmeichel when I was playing as much as I would have liked to. I just couldn't. That's not who I was physically. That's not who I was mentally. I had to find who I was and let that kind of come out in how I played. Similarly for Allison, if this is what he does, you can't discourage him from being that. You've got to be just a little bit more careful in doing that. And you've got to assess certain situations a little bit more carefully. And as much as Klopp or you and your instinct may say, keep the ball in play. We got to pass out to the back. Sometimes, just put it out, and just take the easy and the cheap option, and then figure it out after that. I'm not saying make that your go to every single time, but sometimes just give yourself that out. If you realize the guy's gotten a little bit too close to you, if you realize that you got the ball caught under your feet, just stab it out for a corner, and we'll deal with that. It doesn't always have to be. It doesn't always have to be perfect.
Now, from being in the US so long, you've got a good gauge of what the culture is like over here, and we talk a lot about what the US culture should be taken from other countries. What do you think that our biggest strength here is on a football level?
I think certainly in the US, and I went to college in the US, so I know the soccer scene from back in the mid '80s, early '90s through to today. So I understand the changes and the developments that the game has made and continues to go through. I also have three kids who currently play soccer, so I understand where the game is now. I feel there is a huge value to what the US brings in terms of its organization and in terms of um, at times giving kids an opportunity to play the game. I think where the US is still trying to figure things out is how to extend that opportunity at higher levels and at older ages, so everybody could play for their town team at a certain age. That's always there. There's always a team locally that kids can get to. Nobody has to travel that far really to find an opportunity to play the game, but to have access to coaching at the highest level, even if it's close enough, not many can afford, and the affordability is something that needs to be addressed. At the same time, and as much as I understand the value in kind of the organic development that many countries have and many kids are exposed to, where you're playing on the beaches of Brazil, or you're playing in the parks in England, or whatever it may be. I also feel that there's a value to the organization that there is in the US. But somehow you've got to find that balance. The challenge is in playing organizational soccer as they do here in the US, allowing kids that time to freely express themselves, where results may not matter, where the equivalent of there's one ball in the high school playground and everybody's just chasing the ball, not really a goal anywhere in sight, but that understanding of the ball, that appreciation, and that development of skill in crowded areas, that somehow needs to filter in to the everyday training, because as with the organization and as good as it is to have the organized clubs, there is still a lot hinges on results, and understandably, you go out to play a game, everybody wants to know who wins and who loses. That's ingrained and almost comes natural to us. But somehow we've got to find a way to allow kids that opportunity to play, to make mistakes, to have fun, to do nothing at all, and nobody's keeping count.
Brilliant. Last one for you. Best player you played with?
Best player I played with, and I played with a lot of good players, Gary. I have to say, you can go through from Peter Beardsley, Les Ferdinand, played with Davos Suker, Ian Wright, Stuart Pearce, Ian Rush, John Barnes, and the list continues. Paolo Di Canio, but without question, the best player I played with, in my opinion, was Alan Shearer. I don't think I've ever seen a better finisher. And keep in mind, I played at national team level. I played at junior national team level all the way through to the senior team with the likes of Dwight York and Russell Latterby. But I still feel Alan Shearer was cut above the rest, a cut above anything I'd experienced.
You played with Asprilla?
I played with Tino Asprilla as well at Newcastle. Yeah.
How was he?
He was fun. I mean he was, and this is a value to a personality, Tino Asprilla on the field is exactly how he was off it. And that personality came through on the field. A lot of fun on and off the field. When he had the ball, you knew he was going to excite. And that was something fantastic to be a part of. And as I say, your personality off the field is so often exactly what you get on it.
What about at the other end then? Who had your number, or who gave you the most problems?
Oh, that's an easy answer. Matt Latisha gave me the most problems in my career. Matt Latisha could hit the ball, could do anything with the ball with exactly the same approach and exactly the same back. So as a goalkeeper, you're looking at how somebody's coming onto the ball, you're looking at their eyes, at their back lift, their body shape, to try to figure out exactly what they're going to do, and exactly where the ball is going to go. For me, Matt Latisha had exactly the same approach, exactly the same backlift. He could pick up a ball 35 yards out, and he could chip you, or he could drill it all along, just 6 inches off the deck into the bottom corner, and you had no idea what he was going to do until that ball left his foot, and that made life terrible for me as a goalkeeper.
Brilliant. Shaka, thank you so much for your time. This has been first class.
No problem at all.
Thanks so much to Shaka there for his time and his insight. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. The big takeaway from me with that there, I don't do a lot of goalkeeper stuff. I don't proclaim to know much if anything about goalkeeping, but I am really interested in the leadership aspect of it and how we can get a little bit more vocal from goalkeepers and centre backs, and getting his thoughts is there. I thought he was actually going to dismiss the value of communication at the back, because he's played in big games where St James's Park there's 45,000-50,000 people. What information could you possibly get through to centre backs that they didn't know already? So I didn't really expect him to be so strong on the communication piece, but I completely agree with him, and it's such a simple but effective way. We should really be asking a little bit more on the small information side, on little things, little cues. I think maybe from a leadership point of view, from a coaching point of view, the type of communication we want from our goalkeepers, our centre backs, our centre midfielders, we want the tactical instruction, or we want this great piece of information them to pass on to one another. But for the most part, I think their confidence is not really high in delivering that there. A lot of them don't see the game to the depth that a coach sees the game. So they can be reluctant on passing all that information. They can be quiet. But I think as coaches, we should be continually coaxing more in the information piece from it. Even if it's shift, even if it's step, even if it's hearing each other's voice on the pitch, is something that we should probably spend a little bit more time on in the training field. Having more voices from the players, having less voice from the coach at certain times would allow them to grow in confidence in doing that and see the value in it as well. So it's a question that I get asked a lot at different stages, is how do you improve communication in a team? But like anything, it's just increasing awareness. I didn't see the simplicity that Shaka pointed towards from a goalkeeper's point of view. So it's something that I learned from that there. Really enjoyed his perspective on the goalkeeper and coach, and really the art of coaching, which I've been saying for a few months now is trying to get through in these podcasts, is that the personality of the coach, the way the coach communicates, it just matters so much. And it's great to hear Shaka with such respect for people like Kevin Keegan and Harry Redknapp, for the way they communicated that they wanted football to be played, and the way that they handled personalities is different class. So thanks so much to Shaka, really enjoyed it. Please let me know your thoughts on it, as always, especially the goalkeeper contingent. We don't do an awful lot on Modern Soccer Coach for the goalkeepers, so we'd love to hear your thoughts on that there, one way or the other. As always, let me know what you think. At Gary Curneen on Twitter, at Gary Curneen on Instagram. Feel free to reach out on email, gary@modernsoccercoach.com. With the season finishing in Chicago, there's a few exciting projects coming up. The first one, obviously, with the webinar with Oliver Gage, is coming up on Friday, October 5th. Can't wait for that there. Share some information, share some work that we've been doing over the past 6 to 9 months and interacting with the coaches. So thanks so much for listening. Always appreciate your support, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Modern Soccer Coach Podcast. For more coaching topics, sessions, and resources, head on over to Coach Curneen on Facebook or visit the website at www.modernsoccercoach.com.